watchers, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to do a comparison between these two pieces, which I actually recently reviewed, and I thought they're both kind of vintage style, smaller size dive watches. They're both kind of unobtainable at the moment because they're sold out from the official manufacturer or retail sites. And they're both pretty well liked as far as I gather from forums and all that. So, pretty interesting to do a comparison, I thought. So let's just get into it and introduce the pieces to you. So on the left here, I have the Baltic Aquascaphe. This is the blue gilt model, and this was made available by a local enthusiast, John, who has very kindly lent me this particular watch, a great watch, which unfortunately is sold out from the manufacturer. And check out the full review if you want to, that I did a while back. Okay, so this is the Baltic Aquascaphe. The MSRP of this thing was roughly 650 USD. It was actually priced in euros, so that's a kind of a equivalent price in USD. On the right corner, what I have here is a bit of a fan favorite. This is the Steinhart Ocean 39 Explorer model, the Explorer dial, which is actually a Neumann watch exclusive. Also currently, as of this recording, sold out from Neumann watches, and I'm not sure whether any more is going to come in. 500 USD was the price that this was going for, or 499 if you want to be exact, but effectively 500 USD was the price of this watch. So what we have here are two kind of like entry level European or Swiss priced watches. They're vintage style. They're both vintage style divers. One from kind of a bit of a darling of a Kickstarter brand, Baltic, and the other from the very popular house of Steinhart, French versus German. And they both have 316L steel screw-in case backs. So just show you the case back quickly. So that nice solid one on the Steinhart, and that one with a nice etching on the Baltic. Screw-in crowns, 120 click unidirectional dive style bezels. This one has a sapphire insert, this one's just aluminium. And they both have full dive lume for all the functional parts of the watch that are required to have the lume. So how does the popular newcomer, the sold out newcomer, fare against the fan favorite? The Steinhart is very much a very well followed brand, and they've been around and established now for the last 15 years or so. Okay, so let's just get into the comparison now. So the first up I have, of course, my typical 10 marking key here, which I've used for a while now. So the first one is Calibre. Okay, so I think this one is not too controversial. We have in the Baltic the Miyota 9000 series movement. This is actually 9039, meaning effectively a 9015 without the date. In the Steinhart, we have an ETA 2824 Elabore grade movement, excellently regulated, running about plus 1 or 2 seconds per day. Very accurate and very pleasing movement here. Miyota, just remember the rotor does wind in a unidirectional fashion, so it does kind of like spin around freely if you catch it in the wrong direction. Whereas the Elabore grade ETA, this winds in both directions. Okay, so I think there's very little doubt that I have to give the mark to the ETA Elabore grade here, right? It's just, I think it's definitely more expensive, and overall people do consider this a better movement. So 7 versus 8 is the Calibre mark here. Okay, next one, case and bezel. Right, in this, I gotta say they're both very well executed vintage style homage divers. They actually are both very good. I just think the Baltic is more original, right? The Steinhart, is a little bit more standard, kind of, Submariner homage. Yes, it's a bit different. The lugs are a bit more squared off. This bit here, the crown guards, is a bit more flat and squared off from the typical Rolex sub. What that would be. So that's a little bit different. But this one is really essentially wholly original as far as I gather. Yes, it does take a lot of inspiration from vintage dive style of that era, but look at that bezel, the overall design, the shape of the case, I guess, is what we're really talking about here, as well as that, the actual shape of the design of the bezel, wholly original. I have to give the mark to the Baltic. You know, they're both very well executed. I do think so. The Steinhart bezel, go back to the review to see me turn it, and if you want to, I don't tend to turn the bezels on these comparisons. It's a little bit too firm. It's very, very tight, almost making it difficult even if you don't have gloves or anything on. It's actually not easy to operate. So I'm giving the mark here to the Baltic, 8 versus 7 for the case versus bezel marking here. All right, Duel and Crystal. Again, I think they are both very good. I just think the Baltic adds dimension, right? It's got a slightly convex dial. I showed this very closely on the review, and I'll try to capture it here. It's got a very nicely domed sapphire glass, which is, you know, not only just is it nicely domed, it's actually differential dome, so it's a bit more flat in the middle and it curves a bit more towards the side. And, you know, just the way that they make this case, right? So the dial and the glass here, I think, adds extra dimension, along with the sandwich loom in the different positions, the 369 positions. There's sandwich loom there. So I think I really have to give the mark to the Baltic. It's really very well executed. I mean, the Steinhart is very good. No, don't get me wrong. You know, this is a very good looking watch. The 39 millimeter size is, you know, very well liked. I think it's a really good choice that they've gone with this. And they've really done a good job, you know, with this dial, this kind of vintage explorer style dial. But I think the Baltic just takes it. You know, it's just got a little bit more, you know, dimension, character, a little bit more thought in the overall execution. So I have to give the mark to the Baltic here. 9 versus 8 for the dial and crystal mark here. Right? They're both sapphire. I just think that sapphire has a little bit more character as well. Okay, next. Bracelet. Okay, so here's where Steinhart pulls it back a little bit. Like, you know, I think this Beads of Rice is pretty gorgeous. It's pretty nice, but it's a little bit flimsy. The fit isn't just, it's just very loosely fitting. You know, maybe that's how a Beads of Rice should be, but that's just something I note. The finishing, right, there's a little bit of sharpness on the edge of that quick release end link there, as well as this clasp. You know, that's the finishing, it's just a bit unrefined. I think they could have gone one more pass in terms of making it a little bit more rounded. And then the other thing is, it is also push pin adjustment for this particular bracelet. Whereas in contrast, the Steinhart, you know, no complaints about the finishing, right? It's you know, there's no sharp edges that I can feel. You know, nice solid end links. It's also got screw adjustment. So just show you where's the screw hole. There's. Hopefully you can see that, right? It is actually screw link adjustment. Just about all Steinhart I've had, you know, has that. And, you know, similar type of pressed metal clasp, but just a little bit better finished, I think. So I think in my case here, no doubt I will give the mark to the Steinhart here for the bracelet. It's just a little bit better overall. You know, keep in mind, this is a Jubilee bracelet. It does normally come in an oyster style, but, you know, the quality will be the same. So 8 versus 7 for the bracelet mark here, with the Steinhart edging ahead. Quality. Okay, so here's one where I couldn't separate it. I think, you know, the case, the dial, the bezel finishing, the fit and finish, I can't really separate it. It's really much the same in terms of the quality of the finishing on both of these are really very good. I think the Steinhart maybe might just deserve a half mark more, because the bracelet, I think the finishing on the bracelet, particularly clasp, is just a bit better. But overall, I'm going to stick with equal marks on this, because for most of it, I think the quality is really the same here. So 8 for both Steinhart and the Baltic on the quality mark. Okay, next up, style. Okay, so I think Baltic has originality and thoughtfulness, you know, in the overall design. I talked about this in detail about the review. You know, all the choices they made, the sapphire insert, looming the whole bezel, you know, the shape of the dome, as well as the slight convexity of the dial, you know, the case, the drilled lugs, the choice of Beads of Rice. All those thoughtfulness, I think I really got to give it to the Baltic. You know, I think the Steinhart really is a very well executed homage of a Submariner, which is, obsolete. You can't get it anymore, or is very, very difficult to get and very much sought after, as far as I understand, those old subs with the Explorer dial. So very well done. But because it's just a little bit more derivative versus the depth of thought that has gone into the execution of the Baltic, I think I have to give the style mark to the Baltic. Steinhart, if it was just a straight up sub homage like a modern day, I think I'd probably knock the mark back down to a 6 or a 5 even. But I think because this is a more vintage homage, I'm happy to give this a 7. But overall, the Baltic, I think, wins it for the style category here because of its originality. 8 versus 7. Okay, next up, performance. This one, I think, again, difficult to separate. What am I going to give it here? I think the Steinhart has a slight edge on the water resistance. So it does say 100 meters on the dial, but in reality, this is a 300 meter case and watch. That's the reality of the engineering here. But the bezel, as I mentioned, is difficult and stiff to use. I think the lume is similar. All right, the Baltic is a 200 meter watch. So I think give or take, the bezel is a bit better in terms of functionality on the Baltic. So give or take here and there, I think they're not separable for me. The performance mark is the same here. 8 for both on the performance stakes here is what I've given. Durability. Okay, so I think this one's not controversial, at least in my mind. I think the Steinhart is definitely built more solidly. The materials are similar across the models, right? They both have sapphire. Neither of them have ceramic. This one does have a sapphire bezel, but what have you. Steinhart is definitely a more muscular build. If you look at the shape of the lugs there, you can see there's just more material on the Steinhart. Case-wise as well, you can see that case spec is more robust. They've definitely put more material there as far as it seems, and in terms of weight, there is no doubt that the Steinhart is the heavier watch. It's about 20 grams heavier, and it's palpable when you hold these in the hand. This is a more substantial watch in terms of overall weight. So I'll give the durability mark in this case to the Steinhart, 8 versus 7 here. Value. Okay, so I think both are rather good. The Baltic is, for 650 is offering an excellent design, very, very, well thought out, and certainly a lot of people have liked this watch, and it speaks for itself in the sense that it's actually sold out, right? But for 650, it's not Swiss made, it's assembled in France, it uses a Miyota movement. In contrast, Steinhart, I think, continues to be pretty much the best in class at this price range. It's a $500 price range for Swiss made, for sapphire, for an Elabore grade, excellently regulated movement, quality finishing all the way through, apart from maybe just the clasps could be, I guess, stepped up. But maybe not. Maybe for 500, that's all you can really expect. Best in class, as far as I know, for this price range is the Steinhart. I think I have to give the value mark to the Steinhart because it is also cheaper at $500. So 9, nearly 10 out of 10, 9, almost as good as you can get for the Steinhart, 8 for the value of the Baltic here. All right, last one, guys, brand. Now, okay, what can I say about the brand? Look, Baltic is newcomer, right? This is really only, I think, their third piece, so they're really a baby, but they are getting a lot of love. A lot of people talk about Baltic. It's not, I heard about this way before I got this watch, from John to review. So, I give it 7 out of 10. They are growing. I'm very keen to see what they come up with next. Steinhart, though, of course, is established, right? They're entry-level, Swiss-made, at the 500 range or even lower. And they have super value and a lot of following. So I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 for the Steinhart brand. So there we go. And then just, sorry, I forgot to mention this, but this is, again, a shout out to Jeremy, another local enthusiast and supporter who made this particular Steinhart available. So thank you, Jeremy, for lending me the watch. All right, guys, so there we go. Those are all the categories. If you followed along, you've probably added it up and know what the result is, but here we go. Very, very close. So 79 versus 77 for the Baltic. So, you know, guys, this has been a very interesting and close comparison for me. They have equal marks for the overall quality as well as the performance. I gave them equal marks. The Baltic scores higher for the case and dial, you know, because of its character. The high dome sapphire, you know, I think is better, and overall thoughtful design and style. I've given it a mark for those, but you know, the Steinhart pulls it back on the better movement, better bracelet, you know, durability is scored a bit higher, and not to forget the outstanding value and the brand name of Steinhart, I think is just slightly better and stronger. So guys, there we go, the comparison of this, you know, these two very, very well like vintage style divers at 38mm and 39mm respectively, smaller size. Let me know what you think. Very keen to hear what you guys think about this comparison, particularly if either or both of these watches or brands. So guys, there we have it. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos, do consider subscribing. New content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys again next time.